Welcome to 90s Noise. I'm April, born 1991.
And I'm Ashley, born in 1988.
We are back, and this episode we're talking about what is it? Disney Afternoons? What was it called?
The Disney afternoon cartoon block, I guess.
Yeah. So this is something that went on in the early 90s that had a handful of different cartoons that were going for kids to watch when they got home from school. So yeah, there's about 5 or 6 that we dove into for this week.
But yeah, the Disney afternoon block, which basically was the first of its kind. It's something that had never been done before because a lot of the cartoons that were going on were usually on during the day or in the on the weekends, and there really wasn't any good programming when kids got back from school. You know, we either had to wait till the weekends or we kind of missed a lot of those. So that's what's kind of cool about what Disney was doing, is sort of creating this whole new thing for kids to be able to come home and look forward to watching their new favorite show, because it really did go on through mostly throughout the whole 90s. They sort of took over that, and then once they started kind of figuring out how to do the whole syndication thing, other networks started to take part in it, which was like Fox Kids came about, and I forgot what they call it. Is it something, the WB one or something, where
in
the Tiny Toons and stuff, their whole network saw what Disney was doing, and that's where sort of Tiny Toons and that whole franchise of stuff came out of, because they were following along. I mean, Disney was finding a way to make these new cartoons and making a lot of money from it because of all of the different networks that were able to access it, which was something completely new to how TV programming was available.
Absolutely. Do you remember coming home from school and watching that?
I don't remember literally, but I do know that a lot of these shows in the early 90s, their first half of the programming that they did, I do recall watching. Now, once it got into the later 90s, I had sort of vaguely heard of some of those programs, but they were, at that point I was too old, so I didn't really watch any of those. But the 6 that we're going to talk about on this episode, I do remember strongly watching the majority of them. So it's kind of exciting going back into them and rewatching them as an adult. And surprisingly, I don't know if you had the same sort of viewpoint on it, but a lot of them were really good still. Like, I actually enjoyed watching them as an adult. Like, they didn't feel too childish and annoying where you're like, okay, skip this, I need to move on.
I can say for the most part, there's a few that I feel the same way. There's also a couple that I'm like, yeah, I remember not caring for those when they were on, and so I'd always pass over them. It's definitely gonna be interesting to hear both our takes on everything, though, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I am curious, being that you're a bit younger than I am, what shows sort of stood out more to you growing up versus what I gravitated towards, I guess. So I don't know how you want to do it, but I was just thinking going in order from kind of how they pushed them out through the TV programming.
Yeah.
So the first one they sort of included in that was the Adventures of the Gummi Bears.
The Gummi Bears. Oh my gosh.
And so this is one that I don't feel like I ever ended up watching for some reason. I'm not sure why, because it was prime time in my years that I grew up and stuff, because it was on from 85 to 91. So it had a lot of seasons in a long time frame. So I am kind of curious as to why I never watched that one, or maybe I did and just don't remember anything. But you said you remembered this one.
I remember bits and pieces of it. I think specifically my brothers watched it because it was kind of similar to Care Bears. Obviously, you kind of can get that feel to it. But it was also a lot like, there's a couple of the Disney movies, like the Sword and the Stone type
Mm,
feel.
yeah.
I don't remember if this was a Disney one per se, but what was it? Quest for Camelot. It was another.
It's like it's kind of like that fantasy, magical sort of feeling with the show. It was very lighthearted and just sort of, I don't know
Yeah,
how to describe it.
yeah, and I enjoyed it. It has a lot of the voice actors that we know from other things too.
Yes, it does. It really, and I'm gonna say something about this, and I like just because it was the one show where I felt like I really noticed the similarities. And I know that when you're a voice actor, a lot of, sometimes your voice it'll stand out and it'll carry from one character to the next. But in my opinion, I thought that the two characters in there, that come from like one of the more well-known cartoons as kids know, which is Winnie the Pooh and Garfield. So
Mhm.
two of those characters, voice actors, are also the same in this one, but they sound, in my opinion, they sounded almost exactly alike, and I had a hard time separating the two. Like
Yeah,
all I could picture was I mean not Pooh, Tigger
the
or
Ducker.
Garfield when I was listening to them. Once I picked up on it and I was
Yeah.
like, wait a second, what's going on here?
I think that's mainly because of the fact that those are the characters that we associate with those voices so much. And so it's
Hmm.
kind of just hard to like separate, okay, they do other voices. I know that's kind
Right.
of when I was younger, I was the same way. I was like, I'd hear a voice that I'd heard in other ones because I know like the older Disney movies, they did this a lot too. They use the same voice actors all the time. And
Hmm.
so
Of course, yeah.
you'd hear somebody in one and then go to the next movie and they're right there also.
Right.
And so it is hard to separate that, but I completely understand it because the first minute of hearing that you're like,
Hmm.
okay, yep,
Yep.
I know exactly.
Yeah, and I see it as, because I'm not really sure if when I was a kid, I would have been able to really pull those apart and realize like, oh wait, no, that's the same voice as, Garfield or whatever. I'm not sure if I would have picked up on that. And I mean, voice actors do such amazing work, and I know it's probably a tremendously difficult job, but I would think as a voice actor playing different characters and roles, you would want your characters to have a separation, to be different, so that when someone talks about Tigger, they're not also going, oh yeah, Tigger is also sounds the same as the Gummy Bear character. You would kind of think that they would make it to where they each had their own distinct sort of whatever, so that way you could, you know what I mean? Like you could be like, that one's different from that one.
Absolutely, yes, I definitely understand that. Kind of like how Seth MacFarlane, who he does so many voice characters and everything, but he does separate most of them. Like you can
Right.
always tell the
Right.
different voices. It's not just the same voice. And I think now it's kind of gotten to the point where that's more common to make sure your voice differs for each character.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas back
Right.
in the early 90s, it really didn't make that much of a difference. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Jim Cummings was in the studio for 12 hours a day, just going here, 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 this one, this one, this one, like not even really having a separation himself to
Exactly.
where
Yeah.
he had that time to process or change even just a little bit of tones or anything like that. And I think also it kind of is nice for kids and parents to recognize those voices, though. And maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
part of why they didn't really try to make them sound different.
Yeah, because obviously back then we didn't have the internet to go look up and see, oh, who's voicing that one or who's voicing that one. So, yeah, maybe having that similarities and different tones and dialects and stuff, maybe that was a way for them to sort of be like, hey, look, I also play, you remember me from, playing Tigger, and just those little jabs here and there. That's a good point though, actually, because Yeah, I mean, a lot of these voice actors did so many different roles. Like their resume is just amazing. And a lot of these shows that we're talking about, even this episode, there are some that are in almost all of them. Like
Yeah.
they just have so many characters and stuff. So it's really amazing to see. And I just props to them for the work that they do because it's outstanding and that's such a big part of really any child growing up because most people watch cartoons. So you really do get to hear a lot of great talented artists out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, how many episodes of Gummy Bear Adventures did you watch?
I mean, I just kind of played around with all the shows and I just sort of played random ones and just kind of had it going on in the background while I was doing some research on the shows. So honestly, I don't know. A couple, I would say at least of Gummy Bears. I mean, it
Yeah.
was cute and it was, kind of fun to sort of get into their whole little forest and world that they had created, which it kind of is a weird premise because they're basically like these almost extinct bears because all thanks to humans for sort of degrading their habitat and just making them almost extinct. And I'm kind of thinking about how sad that is and how like wow, like that's actually still going on today and people haven't changed and this is just so that's kind of what I picked up on for the most part.
Yeah, yay humans. We haven't learned in 30 plus years of these cartoons trying to teach us things. But yeah, I enjoyed the Gummy Bear Adventures. Like I said, I do believe it was one that we watched because it kind of did have those similarities with Care Bears, and that it was just a fun thing. It wasn't just purely animals. It had humans as a part of it. It had the separation of good and bad guys and everything too. And what I did think was interesting was sometimes you get these cartoons and they have different characters that are in the forefront of the story who are animals or a form of an animal, like the bears who talk and everything like that. And then they bring in like the horses or the wolves or something like that who are just pure animals that don't talk.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I wonder what that wolf's got to say about all of this or something like that.
What would you say you kind of liked most about the show?
Probably the mixture of each gummy bear having the different personality, kind of almost in a sense, a little bit like the Seven Dwarfs is what it kind of reminds me of.
Okay.
And that they each played a role, but you really couldn't do much without them being a part of, like without each of them. I did like one of the episodes I was watching was where the two female bears were trying to do something. They were working on doing something. I think they were like trying to cook food and the guys were getting in the way. And so they're like, all right, we're going to go scout or go walk the perimeter or something like that and make sure there's no like bad creatures or anything around. And so then the boy bears are, oh no, you guys can't do that, we're gonna go do that and everything. I just kind of thought that was funny.
Do you feel like you had a favorite bear at all?
Probably. I can't remember the names. I'm horrible at names like that. Like I don't even, yeah, I'm horrible with the names. But the little young boy bear was probably my favorite. Also because he would always bring in like the wild animals. He was the one that saved the little wolf cub and hid the wolf cub, and that's just totally something I would do. If I had that opportunity, I would totally do that.
So didn't they all have like these magical abilities when they drank that gummy bear juice that was such a big top secret that the humans couldn't have because otherwise they would get this like super strength and probably get rid of the bears. So I think all the bears had their own little magical whatever ability. Do you remember any of those?
Yeah, so mainly it was mostly just for the most part they showed strength, and I know the older bear was kind of the wizard and had some of those wizard powers. I don't think I rewatched enough to see like all the others and their little powers that they had, but I know that that's also kind of just fun as a kid watching. Like, oh,
Yeah.
there's a drink that you could
Magic.
just drink?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder if they ever marketed any sort of thing during that time as far as some juice type thing for kids that, played off of the gummy bears and if they sold some gummy bear juice or something. I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I think that would have gone over pretty well. Now, what's interesting, there is so many similarities with Care Bears, but the creator came up with the idea for this when his daughter was asking for gummy bears. She wanted just gummy bears to eat.
Yep.
And I just thought that was
And he thought it would be a great idea.
yeah. Oh, hey, you're gonna eat these, but I'm gonna make a show out of them first.
Yeah, I'm sure if you were on that team, you would have been looking at the guy like he's crazy. Like, gummy bears, really, dude? What?
Yeah, for sure.
Brilliant idea.
Absolutely. I mean,
I think they should, as I know they don't have a reboot at all, but I wonder if they should do a reboot of it or if they should just keep the show as is and not touch it.
I don't know if it would necessarily click with people today. I don't know. Number one, I don't see that kids truly watch like we used to growing up.
Mm-hmm.
They're more into like the streaming and the satisfaction now and not having to wait for a new episode every week or anything like that. And so I just don't know if they would truly enjoy and it be able to have its same feel as it did back in the 90s, the 80s and 90s. It would be kind of interesting if they tried doing like a reboot of a movie or something, like a live action movie.
There you go. Did you love gummy bears growing up though? Like the candy?
Yes, anytime we'd go to a candy store, I would actually always go get gummy bears.
Ooh, yes. I love gummy bears too.
Yes. I'm not as big as a gummy bear person now. I kind of prefer more the sour worms, but
Ooh.
there are some days where you still want those gummy bears.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I don't eat candy that much these days, but I could go for a bag of gummy bears. That'd be cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So one other thing that I did find out about the show was basically the animation style. Like, did you notice the difference in animation with the gummy bears versus the rest of the shows that we watched? Like how basically it was only their head that was moving and everything else just was kind of static, almost like a Hanna-Barbera production.
Yeah, I feel like there was definitely some of the same creators or artists because I did feel very, very Hanna-Barbera in Gummy Bears.
Yeah, they said that's because they were using a limited animation technique, which helped them to produce the show and create the show a lot more easily and create more content by not having to worry about moving all of the different parts when it was more of a show that was about dialogue and not so much about like action and having to do all that type of motion.
Hey, all for saving some time. I'm sure that saved them a lot of time also.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that was a long show. I mean, they put out a lot of episodes, so that's a lot of work.
Absolutely. Definitely worth a revisit for anybody who remembers.
Yeah.
The Adventures of the Gummy Bears.
Yeah, it's a fun show. Adventures of the Gummy Bears.
Yes.
Yeah, I liked it. So now we're going to talk about DuckTales.
DuckTales. All right, yeah.
That's a cute show. I loved it. I loved just the start, like just the theme song. Like that theme song just got you going. Like you were instantly like, okay, I'm ready for the episode. Let's go, DuckTales.
DuckTales. Yeah, I don't remember the words. I remember the tune. That's the thing. Like most of these, like rewatching them, really the theme songs really brought me back for sure.
Yes.
And DuckTales was definitely one that I watched significantly growing up. I don't know why either, because that was, I don't know if it was, if it
Yeah.
had anything to do with my brothers. I feel for some reason it didn't, though. Maybe they got me started on it, and then I just kind of got engrossed and wanted to continue watching it. And so it's DuckTales. I mean, come on. It's one of those times where they combine some of the characters, McScrooge, Huey, Dewey, Louie, and they bring in, I mean, they start to kind of, I feel like it was one where they kind of really started to bring in more canon characters into it. And it wasn't just Donald, Mickey, Goofy, Minnie kind of thing. It was growing that universe, giving them more adventures. I like that.
Yeah, that one was very adventurous. It was very like Indiana Jones type feeling, like going all over the world and having all these fun sort of ways to find treasure, or maybe they're fighting off villains to sort of keep them away from the treasure. Like, yeah, I thought it was such a really fun show.
I definitely enjoyed it. And I don't know, I guess it kind of also, I don't know exactly how to put it into words, but almost kind of made you want to go out and do your own adventures too. There's these three kids, call them kids, they're ducklings, whatever, that are, I guess in a sense, almost kind of like a little bit of a Home Alone type feel on some of their adventures, like making these little traps for bad guys and whatnot. It was fun.
Yeah, I agree. So what did you think of what's his name? Scrooge McDuck.
Scrooge McDuck.
Scrooge McDuck,
Yeah,
I think
Scrooge
it is.
McDuck.
How and honestly, it's kind of funny because, he's the richest duck in the world, but he plays like a rich guy plays, as far as they have so much money because they don't really want to spend it. You know what I mean? So he's trying to do all these things to save dollars and save his pennies and not want to have to pay for anything. And that's what rich people do. Even though they have all this money, they never want to spend it. And that's exactly how he was, which is hysterical that he was that way.
I love that. I love that they put that into a character and made it so obvious of how outrageous it is.
Right.
I get it. You have amassed this fortune because you're not just going out and spending all willy-nilly, but going and getting freaking like the sample cheese blocks for meals every day because they're samples.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine?
No, like, oh my gosh.
That's not.
That just, I was watching that and I'm thinking to myself, how ridiculous is it that I guarantee you there are people that are still doing that right now.
Oh yeah.
It's one thing if you're down on your luck and you don't have the money, so you're doing the samples to get by. But it's another thing if you actually have access to the funds to be able to do, and just being a cheapo.
Right. And it's like, it never makes sense because it's like, what's the point of having all that money and doing literally nothing with it? You don't want to spend any of it. Like, that to me just makes no sense at all.
Absolutely. And then like swimming in it.
Oh, that's just classic. I mean, I think we all would like to swim in a big pool of some sort of money.
Wasn't that in did they make that in live action in, what was it, Blank Check or something?
Yeah, I was thinking about that same thing. Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's one of those things where I'm just kind of, I love Huey, Dewey, and Louie's characters, but Scrooge, I just, as a kid, I couldn't understand
I mean, you
it.
love to hate him. You know what I mean?
It's funny. It's one of those things where it's like, as a kid, you don't understand it. You're like, oh my gosh, he's so evil. But then you kind of look at it and you're like, as an adult, And you can, in our day and age right now, you kind of envy him.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and his self-control.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, he was good to his grandsons or nephews or whatever they were. He did treat them well, and you could kind of see that sort of relationship that they were building throughout the show, and I thought that was really a nice sort of touch that they included in there, and it wasn't just all about them fighting off the villains and the bad guys and whatnot. So that that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Didn't they make a movie? Did they do a movie out of it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, they did. They did have a movie, which I don't think was as successful as they wanted it to be. Like they had all these plans to do more with the show, like another sequel or something, and then the movie came out and it was a bit of a bust. And I thought it was kind of funny because I read somewhere that the movie came out basically around the same time as Problem Child, and you know how we feel about Problem Child.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, like for some reason, Problem Child did better than the DuckTales movie, which I'm kind of like, wait a second, that's crazy.
I think because probably DuckTales was too child focused, whereas Problem Child kind of catered a little bit to adults, I guess, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
It had John Ritter in it and everything, and so
Right.
it kind of anybody, all the adults like loved him from Three's Company, all that stuff, and so
Exactly.
they went to go see that, even though they may not have necessarily cared. Whereas DuckTales, it really wasn't involving.
It's a very specific audience. Like, you
Yeah.
have to be a big Disney lover. You have to kind of know that this is Donald's nephews or sons. I don't even know. I don't know the family storyline, but they're all related. And so I mean, that you do have a smaller audience than what you would for Problem Child. But I'm sad that it didn't get, a sequel after that, because I loved watching it as a kid. I thought it was really cool. And I feel like I do really like the fact that Scrooge McDuck has a Scottish accent. I think it's kind of just so like random and like, hey, we're gonna go with a Scottish accent. Donald, we can't understand a word Donald says, and then his kids are all, just normal speaking duck voice, and you have a Scottish duck over there. So
Yeah.
which is just crazy.
I think that's very intriguing how they did that those different versions. In a sense, it's kind of just like, okay, how does this family all connect?
But did you know that the voice of Scrooge is actually the actor that was in Mr. Ed?
Really? Huh. I did not.
Yeah, yeah. I thought that was really cool. And he played the Scrooge up until he recently passed away. Like, I think he passed away when he was 96, and he played that character all the way up until he's 94. So
Wow.
that's some dedication. That's really, really amazing.
Absolutely. I did not know that. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, I think that's so cool that to have people that are that dedicated to their character and just love being a part of their world and don't want anyone else to voice them.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's nice for us as adults, like if we went back and watched any of the new content with Scrooge and everything, we'd recognize that. And it would then take us back to our childhood where we were watching DuckTales and everything.
Did you like the Launchpad character? Because I thought it was kind of funny when I was watching it. His character sort of reminded me of Wilbur in Rescuers Down Under. He kind of just had that same hilarious, loopy, kooky bird vibe.
Yeah, and so Launchpad was an interesting character, and then he is very much, like you said, like Wilbur in Rescuers, and he's fun.
Yeah.
He's fun, quirky, and that's a great segue into the next one, which we'll go ahead and talk about, is Darkwing Duck.
Darkwing Duck wasn't next, but okay.
Well, I mean, we're talking about Launchpad and everything, so
we could. I mean, yeah, Launchpad was in Darkwing
Yeah.
as well, but according to the creators, they're not the same character, even though
Really?
they're the same.
Isn't it the same
Like they
act,
weren't
like the
supposed to be
voice?
made. Yeah, I think everything's the same, but I mean, obviously they still call them, I think,
Launchpad,
Launchpad
yeah.
and Darkwing, right?
Yeah, they do.
But I don't think that it was because I think in DuckTales he was just a terrible pilot. Like he couldn't do jack shit with the plane. But in Darkwing he's actually a very skilled and capable pilot. So they were trying to say that it wasn't it's the same character but it's not the same character. I don't know. I don't know if they were trying to fuck with us or what, but
Are they trying to pull some like multiverse bullshit like back
I
then and
think
everything?
so.
This is a variant of Launchpad. So which one were you wanted to do next on that?
Oh, that's fine. I mean, I wasn't done with DuckTales. I was gonna ask you.
Go for more.
No, I had a lot for that one, but no, I just actually saw that there's some DuckTales scavenger hunt thing going on at Epcot right now because that they did like a reboot of the show that it's been
Yeah.
out for a few years now, and so I guess it's kind of tied into that. But I was like, oh dang it, I wish I could go to Epcot and do that. That would be so fun.
Damn. How long is that going on?
It just started, so I'm assuming it's gonna be
Maybe
permanent thing for a while.
or is it maybe during which festival are we at? What are we at? Arts festival time?
Maybe. I don't know.
Huh.
I didn't see anything on there looking at the Disney site as far as like only temporary through this. I mean, it seems like it's kind of a new attraction that they may be doing for a while.
Damn, we'll have to
So,
check
yeah.
that out.
Yeah, that was kind of cool, I
Yeah.
thought.
What else you got for DuckTales?
I think that's kind of it.
As the theme song replays in my head on loop.
I know, right? Which apparently only took the guy 45 minutes to write. So,
Damn.
how hits come. The hits are always the ones that you put like little effort into, and then the ones you spend hours and hours on, it's like, no, that's a bomb.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, because I was going to talk about Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers next, the guy actually wrote the theme song for this show as well. So if you liked one, you probably liked the other.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, but I always really liked Chip and Dale.
Yeah, how could you not? They're
They
so
were
cute, little.
And they usually have people in like the theme parks playing them really well.
Oh yeah,
I
I think I kind of feel like I remember seeing them when I was there in the early 90s. I just feel like that's one of the characters that I remember kind of being around one of the attractions
Yeah.
like that we were in the line for and stuff. I just feel like I remember their presence, which is kind of funny.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember for me when I came down to Disney in the 90s, I believe I don't necessarily remember them in the theme park itself, but I do remember them at the breakfast. We did
Okay.
I believe it was the Grand Floridian breakfast with the character breakfast.
Hmm.
And I remember them coming around and everything. But I don't know why, I just really like The Adventures of Chip and Dale Rescuer.
Yes.
I thoroughly enjoyed that one. And I don't know, I guess I think I kind of like how they made them two completely separate characters, like Chip
yes.
as well and Dale. One of them kind of had more of the Indiana Jones theme going on, and then the other one had what was it? Oh my gosh, I can't even remember. Tom Selleck played him.
Like a Miami Vice type
It
feel.
wasn't Miami Vice, it was Magnum PI.
Magnum, that's the other one.
Yeah, Magnum.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had the little what was it, a fly?
I think maybe
It
some
was-
sort of flying insect.
He was cute, even though you never like he's an insect,
Right.
but he was still cute.
Yeah.
I don't know, I liked how they kind of would take the cases that the human detectives wouldn't. Like the little girl who's lost her cat, of course.
Aw.
I was watching that one and it made me sad.
Oh. Did they find the cat?
They did. I
Yay.
I was really happy about that because I mean, you've got two chipmunks, then you've got what was the other one? A
Gadget.
mouse. There's
Mouse,
Gadget, and
yeah.
then there was the other one.
The bigger mouse guy.
Yeah, and going to Cat Alley to look for cats
Whoa.
and everything, and it was cute. And then like the little kitty, and I thoroughly enjoyed that episode. I'll be honest with you.
Oh, hey, that sounds great.
Yeah.
What do you think of Gadget though? Like as a female character and kind of wasn't everybody else basically a male? I feel like. So,
Yeah, for the most part, I like that they had that. I do feel like she could have done a little bit more.
hmm.
And like I don't know, I guess I kind of a part of me too, and maybe this is just because of like well when I was younger watching it, I didn't quite understand both Chip and Dale were just so infatuated with her and everything because they were in love. And as a kid you don't understand that. And then
Right.
watching it as an adult, you're kind of like, I don't know. I guess it was a little too. I am not even sure how to explain that. It was just a little too cheesy, I guess, of how they were acting, maybe.
Hmm.
But what about you? What did you think of Gadget?
I liked her. I mean, I thought she was a cool character to have, being a woman and a girl growing up, you could kind of look at her character as sort of being a good representation. She was strong and she's sort of kept up with the guys and, was there helping them out when on different things that needed help on. And plus she was kind of, wasn't she the one that worked on all the
Yeah,
stuff?
she was the
like
mechanic. Yeah.
built things. So yeah, I mean, she had some great features that I thought were kind of a neat representation
Yeah.
for that.
I did like that they had her as the mechanic. That was one of the things when
Yeah.
watching I was like, all right. Showing girls that
Hey.
they could do, they can still do as long as they put their mind to it.
Mm-hmm. And what's funny is that this show, before they sort of came up with the idea of it being based off of Chip and Dale, was going to be something based off of the Rescuers. Like they were going to have this whole thing about that, but then I guess because it was sort of around that same time the sequel was getting made, they were like, no, we can't do a show and a sequel, so they scrapped that idea and came up with Chip and Dale.
I could definitely see that
Mm-hmm.
because there are a lot of the same similarities,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
which I mean, that's not bad.
No.
And I think it did work because it kind of had these small little adventures and everything, and these like 15-20 minute time slots because you gotta remember the commercials, people. And so I think that was a good variety to add to bring back Chip and Dale and give them their own show in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember that movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I know that they had like a little small part in that. They sort of have brought these characters back in, and I think because of how successful that movie was when it came out, it created this new hype around Chip and Dale. So that's, I think, where they were able to sort of pull that out of the hat and be like, let's go in this direction and do it about these guys.
Yeah. So I'll be honest, I didn't watch this, so I won't be surprised if you say you didn't. There's a new movie? Chip and Dale
Oh, the
movie?
movie. I have not watched it, and I probably will not watch it.
Yeah, I had just seen like I think like a small little trailer because it just came out like last year. And it's not really it's not really a cartoon. It's more of how like Sonic and Pikachu, Detective Pikachu was, which is kind of weird to me.
Yeah, it doesn't work for chipmunks.
No, they tried it with Alvin and the Chipmunks, and that didn't.
Yeah, exactly. There should have been a lesson that didn't go well.
Yeah, it really didn't. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't think I'll be watching it. I don't.
I don't think I will either unless I get to just a point where I'm just needing something in the background to be excess noise and not need to pay attention to it.
Right.
Because that's sometimes my problem is like I'll put something in the background to just have some noise but then I'll get too drowned into it. And I'll be like, okay, now I'm
Exactly.
watching. And so maybe I'll throw that in just to one of these days when I'm cleaning or something. And that way I don't really
Oh
have to pay attention
gosh.
to it and see how many brain cells I lose.
Oh man. I thought there were some big names behind it though. So, I mean, I'm curious as to if it is a decent movie, like is it doing well? Did people enjoy it? Let's see.
Oh, Andy Samberg.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if I want to watch it. So it's very, yeah, because that's right. I was like, what, just watching the little trailer.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it does have a handful. It really does have a lot of decent people listed and everything, but I'm not gonna lie, I don't think it did very well. Period.
Yeah, it is unfortunate because it is always cool to see these cartoons and your favorite cartoons growing up coming back. It is cool that DuckTales has a whole new series, and Chippendale's got this movie, and Darkwing Duck has a new show. It's cool that these are still staying relevant, and you can watch them as a kid, but you can also rewatch them as an adult or watch whatever new is coming out as an adult.
Yeah, I feel though with some of these new ones, watching them as an adult, it just makes me upset, I guess.
Mm.
Because I'm like, you're ruining the good thing we had
Mm-hmm.
back then.
Yeah.
Some of these reboots, if they're like a continuation,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit more okay with because it's a different
Right.
story.
Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, from what I heard though, the DuckTales new reboot actually did pretty well. Like people
Really?
said it was very good and very still reminiscent of what the 90s had brought. But it's funny though because when I put it in on Disney Plus to watch it, I started typing in DuckTales, and the first thing that popped up, I click on it and I started watching it, and as I'm watching, I'm a couple minutes in, I'm like, okay, this does not look familiar. And the kid was wearing some hat that said hashtag with an emoji. And I'm like, they did not have that in the 90s. And I finally realized that it was the new version. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it was so hysterical. And so finally, then I watched the right one. But I'm like, this is not okay. What is happening?
That's hilarious. That's kind of, yeah, when I was watching these, because I once I started watching one of them on Disney Plus, then like some of the others started to pop up, and I would go in and I'd look at the screen, like it would say when it started, and make sure it was the correct date. Like if it was 19 in the 1990s or before, I'm like, okay, I've got the right one.
Oh my gosh. That's too funny.
Yeah, could you imagine 90s with like hashtags and everything? Ugh.
No, no. We had our words in the 90s, okay?
Yeah, yeah, no.
So what about the next one?
So which one are we doing?
TaleSpin.
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 This was probably one of the harder ones for me to rewatch just because
I agree.
I think so for me, what I tried to do was try to watch at least 2 episodes for each.
Yeah.
And I did like the first episode, and then if it was one where there was continuation for the next one, like it went right into the second episode, then great. Or I just kind of picked a random episode. TaleSpin, I barely got through that first episode, I admit.
Yeah. I hear you. I'm with you.
I do remember watching a little bit growing up in this Disney afternoon thing, but it was one that I think I probably would see was playing, but then I knew something was coming on after it that I wanted to see.
Right.
I don't know.
It's weird though because like I love The Jungle Book. I think it's such an amazing movie. And I know that around the time that this show came out, they had recently re-released The Jungle Book, so it was kind of fresh and new in people's minds. So this show was kind of a good thing for them to play off of that. But I think what sort of made it difficult to get into if you loved The Jungle Book is that the characters weren't a continuation of the characters from The Jungle Book. You know what I mean? Like, yes,
Yeah.
there's the same characters, but they were not the same. So I think
Yeah,
that's kind of what made it like, oh, I can't get into this.
exactly. And that first episode when they have whoever's voicing Baloo
Mm-hmm.
sing and everything, it broke my heart because the voice itself, he did a pretty decent job of being what we knew from the Jungle Book,
Mm-hmm.
but that singing voice
Yeah.
just wasn't. And he doesn't have a bad voice or anything like that. It just wasn't Baloo.
Right.
And that was like a stab to the heart because at first I admit I was like, okay, this is the one with the Jungle Book characters, right? And was watching, I was like, okay, yeah, it is. And so I was like, okay. All right, Baloo, yeah, all right. Same voice from Bare Necessities. That is not the same
No.
one. No. And just because of that, like it took me, that episode seemed to go a lot longer than the 25 minutes or whatever it truly
I thought
was.
so too. Yeah, I did too. I'm like, why are we still going?
Yeah.
I swear I turned it off or like went and did something and came back and it was still the same episode. I'm like, how are we not on episode 2 yet? It was.
Yes, I was the exact same way. And I mean, Kit's character, the little Kit character was super adorable and everything, but kind of also was a little bit like annoying, I guess, to me.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And then like I guess I don't get it. Why are a lot of times the bad characters like the dogs or the cats? Do you ever notice that?
Yeah.
It's a lot of times it's like a character as a dog, like this one, the first episode of this one is the pirate's a dog, but like even in the Jungle Book movie we've got, what is it, the tiger
cat.
and
Mhm.
everything. It's like why are they discriminating against cats and dogs?
I know. I guess because probably just the most common household pet. So, like, guess what? Pets are evil.
They are not.
I know. I didn't like that. Definitely not.
No.
But you know what I did find funny what I found out, I should say, that was funny is that the Rebecca character was actually based off of the same character that Kirstie Alley plays in Cheers.
Huh.
Which I don't know if you ever watched Cheers. I wasn't a big Cheers watcher, but it's kind of funny because they showed like a little side by side of the character and then how Kirstie Alley played her, and it was exactly like the same.
Huh. That's
So that was their inspiration, which I
Hey.
think is a compliment. That's kind of cool.
Absolutely. That's always interesting to find out what the inspiration behind some of those characters are.
Mm.
Like just the attitude they give them and how they dress them and everything. I wish there was more behind the scenes of some of those animations,
Oh yeah.
but it just wasn't a very common thing back then.
Right. Yeah. I definitely think that they should do something where like find a lot of that old footage from these old shows and kind of that behind the scenes and sort of make a compilation of all the different ones to sort of be able to see that, release them from their secret vault that they have.
That I would pay money for, honestly.
Yeah.
Like that would be honestly a great like Disney Plus thing to throw in there.
Ooh,
They
yeah, a
already,
little special. Yeah.
yeah, they already they've done some of those, like brought back some of the wonderful worlds of Disney.
Mm.
They've dug into their vaults for some of that. Like they
Yeah.
have like a Mickey Mouse Club at Disney from like 60s or 70s. I think it was the 70s that's on Disney Plus. So they obviously have gone back into their vaults for some of this. I really do think, like you said, it'd be a great show. They could turn that into God knows how many episodes with how many animated
gosh, yeah.
movies.
Exactly. If they did every show, every movie, every cartoon, whatever, like, and just gave us all the content, that would be so amazing to see.
That would. And that's one thing that I loved about when DVDs and Blu-rays came out was they started doing that. They started doing those
Yeah.
behind the scenes things. And so it sucks that a lot of these older movies and shows and everything,
Mm-hmm.
they just didn't like never gave it to any of the production companies or anything like that. So we don't have that access anymore to it. And I would
Right.
love to see it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree. Did you know that the show actually has 2 episodes that are banned? Like they're not, you
Really?
can't find them. Like no, like Disney didn't have them.
I'm
Yeah.
sure
I
they're
think
on
you can find them
YouTube.
like online,
They're,
but
they're
yeah, I
probably
think they're
on
on
YouTube.
YouTube. Someone's got them.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought that because of, okay, so the 2 banned episodes, one was about racism and one was about terrorism, like with a bomb.
Huh.
They decided, no, this was not good.
So were these banned like after their first airing? Because
I know that I'm not sure if it was this show or another show that happened, but I think some of these re-aired, but it was later on like during their re-airings that somebody spoke out about it or some parent or something was like, "Wait, this is not good content for our kids."
yeah, because I was gonna say it must have been after the internet came out and everything because I mean it was really damn hard to cancel somebody or something pre-internet.
Right, unless the network realized they fucked up and did their own cancellation of it, but
Just from different things that used to be out and everything. I don't, maybe the bomb one I could see.
mhm.
A lot of people use like some of the different shows or movies that depict racism to help teach about it and help make people more aware of it and
Right.
everything. So,
I mean, it's all about the country too, because
yeah,
some countries are more aware of that and are, are more inclined to ban that versus other countries.
yeah.
So I mean, it really just depends, but it is kind of crazy that a show geared towards kids, they would have a content that's even sort of on those levels.
It kind of shows you how different society is and how, I guess, more sensitive and everything
Mhm.
because it, you used to be able to get away with everything. Like, writers didn't give a shit. They would throw everything they could think of into a show or movie
Mhm.
and not care. But now everybody's got blinders on now to where they've, oh, can't look over there, can't look over there. I've got like just
Mhm.
very, that does make me kind of laugh that there were not necessarily the topics, but that this show has 2 episodes that were banned.
Mhm. Yeah.
Good old Baloo getting banned.
Oh, poor Baloo, not his fault. Oh, but there was another thing, like another issue with the show that I found out with the whole King Louis character.
Uh-huh.
You remember his character?
Oh yeah.
So I guess the new guy that was voicing him, because the original had passed,
Yeah.
I guess he sounded too much like him or was doing, too good of a job at playing him that the widow of the original basically was suing them and, trying to, which they reached some settlement, but ever since then, there has never been another representation of King Louis. Like, you won't see him in anything else after the show came out. So, because of that,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. So she probably, I wonder if she was maybe thinking that they were using old tapes, like old
Mm,
recordings. And then so she wasn't, the state wasn't getting anything
right,
from that. But in her mind, since it sounded so much like him that it was him and
right.
it was just the Lord knows how many hours of unused audio that they have. I mean, heck, they were able to do guy who voiced Mr. Potato Head in Toy Story had passed before I think it was the third Toy
Mm,
Story, and they had enough. Instead of replacing him, they worked it out with his family and estate to just go ahead and use the footage they already had, the audio that they had
oh,
already
wow.
had recorded from the previous
Hmm.
movies.
Wow. That's crazy.
That's insane though. So did they I never watched the live action Jungle Book. So was
Oh
there
yeah, the live
not
ones.
a
Mm-mm.
King Louis?
No,
What?
no.
King Louis's character in the original Jungle Book kind of scared me. I'll be honest.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I agree.
He's a little scary. I don't know. That's what's funny is King Louis to me was more a villainous character than whoever the cat, the tiger.
Oh yeah.
Like I don't know, but I didn't realize that they've not had any other representations of King Louis since then.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. That's crazy. The power.
Yeah, damn, that's insane. Because I think like what it was that I heard you kind of I think you hear in the first episode like you hear King Louis before you hear Baloo, and it was so much like the gentleman from the Jungle Book
Hmm.
that I was like, oh, it's the same. I was the same way as the widow was. It's the same actor.
Right.
And so I was
Yeah.
like, I think my brain just automatically was like, oh yeah, it's the same actors for all of them that were alive and everything. And then when Baloo sang, I'm like, nope, not the same actor. So,
Oh.
all right.
Ready for your Darkwing Duck?
Darkwing Duck.
I take it you like this one?
You know, out of all of these that we've watched, this one I think is the one that I did not really ever watch during Disney Afternoon growing up.
Okay.
I think it felt just too dark for me.
Yeah.
It kind of has like that DC comic vibe to it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely very dark. Like that whole what was that movie that they I forgot what that one that came out recently, but it was like very dark. Like the whole movie was shot and it was in a very
The
dark
Batman.
toned. Was it the Batman one?
The one with Robert Pattinson, the most recent Batman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And exactly. That's exactly what it was reminding me of. Was those super dark tones, and I already was watching like another show I think at that time that kind of had that same darkness because it took place at night, and even this one like it did take place entirely at night, but it's
No.
still, I mean, even during the day the colors just kind of had a darker tone to it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I don't know, I just never really cared for it. And honestly, Darkwing's character just cringe to me. I don't know if you felt the same way.
Oh.
I
He was. He was kind of cringe. But I mean, I did like that it was, and it probably is the reason why his character is so cringe. I mean, it is just like a parody off of all those comics and superhero things. Like that's really what the show is.
Yeah.
Like it's a whole big spoof basically. So I did like how they had that humor in it, and it was completely different than all the other shows that they had going on before that, where they're fun, they're lighthearted, they're on an adventure and just being their goofy selves. And then you had Darkwing come in and he was a good guy, but he was also just had this weird sense of humor and was just crazy.
and like there used to be a show a while ago that kind of had that same start to it where sitting on the couch reading a story and then go into the story. And I can't even remember what that was, but like I said, Darkwing was one that was just hard for me to watch. I think, I don't know, maybe because I wasn't super into the superheroes and the comic cartoons at the
Right.
time. I watched some of them because of my brothers, but they were at that time older to where Darkwing wasn't appealing to them. And so for Disney, I watched more of what I wanted to watch in a sense, and that just wasn't it. Out of all of these, since that was more darker, it just didn't have the appeal to me personally.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't feel like I watched that one a whole lot either. I mean, the character is familiar, like I know
Yeah.
his character, And I do feel like I remember getting one of those little toys from McDonald's. Like I feel like his
Gosh.
character was one that they had there a lot, and I just remember. So that kind of is probably why I maybe would watch the show or something. I'm like, oh, I have this character. What's he from? And maybe
Yeah.
put on the show or something. But
I remember those characters.
yeah, that one I don't think I
Yeah.
watched
I
as
remember
much.
those toys. I think I would always get TaleSpin. Not TaleSpin.
Ooh. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the Baloo,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
I feel
Cause
like I would get him a lot. Yeah.
it was funny because you'd think that like the main characters would almost sometimes would be ones harder to get. But
Mm.
when you would go to McDonald's, did you ever go up and be like, okay, what toys do you guys have? Can I have this
Oh,
specific
yeah.
one?
Yeah. Yeah, because you don't want every time you go, you're getting the same one all the time. And it's like, okay, I'm tired of the same one.
Yeah. Like, do you guys have any other options? Do I need to go to another
Exactly.
McDonald's?
And that's what they wanted you to do, probably go to multiples in your
Yeah.
area just in one day and get them all.
We only had like two within a 30-minute drive, so it's like I can't. Like, I don't have my own car. My parents have to drive me everywhere.
No. But I mean, he did have like catchphrases that I thought was kind of cool, that they had a sort of catchphrase for him every time he would come in and try to fight off the bad guys.
Yeah. What was your favorite catchphrase? You brought up.
I don't know. I know I did, didn't I? The only one that I remember, the only one that I know, because like I said, I didn't watch that many, is the one that he was like, I am whatever, and I am the batteries not included. And I just thought that was kind of funny because we can all relate to that one.
Yeah.
Got the new toy, but can't play it yet because we forgot to get the batteries.
Yeah.
So, oh.
Now, talking about people being voice actors crossing over and everything. Do you know who voiced Darkwing?
Not until I watched this, no, but yeah.
It doesn't sound like
Now
him.
I do.
It doesn't sound like him though.
No, it doesn't. It's so distinct that it's crazy.
That I just was looking at that and everything. I was like, shit, that we were just talking about how most of the time when he does voice something, we recognize it right away.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if The Adventures of the Gummy Bears and Pooh were maybe like recording around the same time and everything. And then Darkwing came later.
Ooh, yeah.
And so he was then able to get into a different character.
He had a whole new spin on it. Yeah. Is he the same one that's still voicing him now in the new show that
I honestly wouldn't be surprised just because I know he's really stuck with most of his characters. But yeah, because I would think that he probably would. Jim Cummings probably would still be doing Darkwing Duck.
Did you know that this show also had a band episode?
Oh, God gracious, Disney and all these band episodes. What was this one for?
This one was because of Satan was present in it.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what I don't understand. Okay, so Satan was present in it. Okay. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming probably the ones who raised a ruckus and raised hell to get it banned
Ooh.
are probably the same people who wanted Harry Potter banned, all of that. And it's like, okay, it's one of those things where, okay, they wanted Harry Potter banned, but what about like all these Disney movies that had fairy godmothers and all those magic? Darkwing Duck has an episode with Satan in it. If you're religious, Satan's there. Like Satan's a true form. It doesn't. I can't comprehend that. I don't know. The hypocrisy of people doing that just gets me. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now I'm really curious and I'm probably gonna go down the rabbit hole and find these episodes on like YouTube or somewhere.
Yeah.
Just to see how extreme they were. And when I say extreme, that's in air quotes.
Right.
Because I have watched some things that were 80s and 90s where I'm watching it, I'm kind of like, oh, good Lord, this actually passed and like was allowed. And so I'm wondering if these are going to be the same kind of things. But considering they're Disney cartoons, I don't believe that that's going to be the case.
Right. Yeah. And what sucks about watching a lot of these older things is that when you are watching them now your mind goes to thinking like, oh, this isn't gonna hold up well. This is not good. Like, uh-oh, like, wow. Whereas when you were watching it during that time, that thought wasn't crossing your mind, like that was okay. That's what you're watching and there was nothing wrong with it. But now you watch them and that's what you instantly think. It's like, oh, is someone gonna be offended by this? Or, oh, who's gonna, it's just now it's all we think about.
And it sucks. It makes it to where you really can't enjoy things the way they were meant to be enjoyed. Because, like I said, everybody's got to walk on eggshells anymore. There is little enjoyment in that. And now I'm not saying, I am saying that there are some things that got through and was okay to be done. Probably shouldn't have even been done back then. And not especially for kids.
Right.
I'm still scarred by Alice in Wonderland, honestly. That's one of those things where you're kind of like, how in the hell did an entire movie like that? But you also gotta think that these creators were making things for both kids and adults at the same time. And so they had to, on some of these, make them to where it would be enjoyable across all lines. And so they'd have to throw in some of those innuendos that kids aren't gonna fucking understand. But adults are going to be sitting there laughing their asses off. But now you can't even do that.
No.
This one may need
no
to
more
have
joys.
Yeah, this one may need to have like on our little description, like warning.
Explicit.
Extremely explicit.
Oh gosh. That's so funny.
Good Lord.
But I think that original. Okay, so anyways, going back to Darkwing, I think I forgot what we were talking about, but
we digress sometimes.
Sometimes. Is that this show, which seems to be a trend with a lot of things that Disney does, is that they wanted to name it Double O Duck, so they wanted to sort of have a play off of, the whole James Bond thing, but they didn't own the right. No one can use Double O because that's copyright and everything. So of course Disney wasn't able to go in that direction. But it's just funny how that it seems like they always get themselves caught and stuck in all these little traps and things with the stuff that they're doing.
They do. It's entertaining, but it's also kind of sad that now with the mogul and the corporation that Disney is, they will win. If still getting stuck in some of those situations, they're going to win every time because they're just going to pay out.
Yeah, they're going to own everything, so it won't matter to them.
I mean, they really are.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, they really could almost get away with anything. So what can you do?
Yeah. It's a love-hate relationship with Disney, honestly.
It is. Yes.
It really is. Anything else on Darkwing?
No.
All right. I think we got one more?
We got Goof Troop.
Goof Troop.
I like this one. I love Goofy.
Yeah.
I think he's probably one of my top favorite animated characters. So I think I really enjoyed this show particularly a lot growing up. And I know they also had like a movie that came out a little bit later that I watched. I think the thing that I remember the most though about it is the video game, which when we talk about video games, we can talk more about it. But that video game for some reason has a place in my heart that I just remember it so much. I just remember the cover art and just all the different levels and stuff. So yeah, that was a lot of fun to play.
I don't know if I ever played that one. I'll have to dig deep in my memory for that one. So, Goof Troop, how long did this one go on? Because I feel like did it go on for a while?
And honestly, no, it only went for a year. It only had a short season.
Then they must have...
But I think it kept going because, like I said, they had the movie come out in 95, and then they had like another movie come out in 2000, and I think Goof Troop replayed like through the second half of the 90s, that back half that it played for all those years. So I think
Okay.
that's why, like, I know it so well growing up when I did it, but then everyone else that was born later on, they also did because they played it for so long.
Okay, because I do remember seeing the show during Disney Afternoon. And
Hmm.
I don't know, Goofy was honestly not a favorite of mine, but I always feel bad for him.
Oh, I know.
He's got such a big heart and everything, but he's so goofy that like he gets into these situations that suck for him.
Yeah.
I always my one of my favorite characters was always Pluto.
Oh, yeah.
And so like I never understood. Okay, Goofy's supposed to be a dog also. Pluto's a dog. Pluto is how we have dogs. But Goofy gets to wear shoes and clothes and everything and walk around and eat at the big
Oh.
kids table. So I think this one was a little different for me because I one of my first, I think, memories, with the exception of like watching those super old cartoons, like the original
Hmm.
animations,
Yeah.
was a Goofy movie.
Oh, yeah.
And so going back and watching this Goofy movie was very sharp animation, whereas this was almost kind of like a elementary animation, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, they did have different styles. So I mean, it kind of makes sense. And plus the son's a little bit older, like the characters are a
Yeah,
little bit older in that one, so it is kind of a transition in time.
yeah. Whatever happened to the cat?
The
Goofy's,
cat.
yeah, Goofy's got a cat. They've got a cat in it. The cat does like nowhere after Goof Troop.
Huh.
Like it's, which is weird to me also. Goofy's a dog. They own a cat.
Well, I mean, maybe that they're just trying to say that everyone can be friends, you know?
That cat does not like Goofy.
I know. Oh gosh. That's funny.
He's like, you just give me food, but we don't even coexist.
Yeah, I mean, Goofy is just so, this show in particular, that was just so different than all the rest that they had put out. Like, this one wasn't about them fighting off villains or chasing something. It was really just kind of like a sitcom, almost like a typical day in the life of Goofy and his son, and, just kind of doing random things. It was just sort of a nice family show.
And I was liking that of it. Because sometimes you just need to slow down. I do like all the adventure shows and everything, but then there are times where, like, those sitcom shows, like I said, this
Mm-hmm.
one is a nice change of pace to what was the main aspect of Disney Afternoon. So
Yeah.
it gave people kind of that chance to kind of, probably adults probably liked it because instead of all these different adventures, getting the kids active and their minds going, oh my gosh, I want to do an adventure, then it was kind of Goof Troop, where it was not necessarily a
Mm,
slower pace, but a lower stimulation that they could
right.
then put the kids down for a nap after or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, or have them get ready for dinner and
Right.
not be a, oh, I want to go on an adventure like they do or anything. It's like, okay, like you kind of see those aspects also in Goof Troop. The dinners, those calming things. Well,
Mm-hmm.
partially calming when Goofy's involved.
Right, yeah. You never know. He's accident prone. Something's
Yeah,
bound to happen.
that's for sure. Who is your favorite character from Goof Troop?
I like Max. I think probably Max was my favorite. I think he's a cool character. It's kind of the typical teenager or preteen or whatever age he was on there, and kind of embarrassed about his dad and doesn't want his dad really involved in his life and doing things, and but they still have like a good relationship, and I
Yeah.
think that was kind of a good aspect that Disney showed with it, was that relationship with the father and son, unlike Pete, who I don't like him
Hmm.
at all, or his relationship with his wife or his son. I think he's a complete asshole.
Yeah.
And regardless of the fact that who voiced him, the character was a no.
Who voiced him?
Well, we've talked about him many times already, about voicing other great characters, but it was Jim.
He voiced Pete? Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really care for him voicing Pete, honestly. Yeah, I didn't realize that. That's interesting.
No, yeah, either did I. Yeah. It is crazy. I guess because it's like a character where you don't, probably one of the few characters of his that where you just don't like, you know? So it's
Yeah,
kind of weird to think about that.
absolutely. Yeah, I don't know if anyone who really cared much for Pete's character. And it's not one of those where, oh, you hate him as a child or anything. You still don't like him as an adult. Let's be honest.
Right. Exactly.
It's not one of those where as a child you identify as like the princess, but then as an adult you identify as the evil stepmother or something like that. No,
No.
no, not on this one. This one did not
Yeah.
stick with that parameters at all.
Yeah. No. Did you have a favorite character from the show?
So I actually like PJ's little sister.
Okay.
She's kind of like just a fun character who gets into trouble but like knows how to get out of it and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And honestly it's kind of a lot like the mom, who's very forward and doesn't cower like PJ does.
Mm-hmm.
And I like her character. What is the little sister's name anyways?
Ooh, I don't know, honestly.
I don't even remember. Or even if they even name her. I feel like they do. Because I feel like, especially in the first episode, there's one point where, like, the mom is, like, yelling at her to get back inside and don't eat those worms! Or something like that. It's like,
Oh my gosh.
that's such a little sister, little kid thing to do. And I just love it.
Oh yeah, I do too. Yeah. So you watched the little rap video that I sent you about this that I found?
Oh my gosh, what?
Just the Goofy rap.
Books for those. Oh,
What? That was weird, right?
I felt like I was tripping acid. Like I literally I watched those and I'm just I'm like, especially the Goofy one, because like
Oh
then
my god.
like all of a sudden you got two people, like one's dressed as Goofy, one's dressed as Max, and you're like, wait a second, they weren't dressed like that a minute ago.
Somebody made a hilarious comment on the video about how it looked like they were watching a sequel to Cats. Like it just looked like it was a dog-based version of Cats, and I was like, it's exactly
Oh
what
my
it was. Like, what the fuck?
Wow.
Oh.
They nailed that to a T. Like that is so true. What rabbit hole did you go down to even find those?
I didn't think I was down a hole. I was just on some blog post and someone was writing their review and they were talking about this video, which apparently had aired at the end of a VHS tape back in the day.
Oh God.
But then they also had the Darkwing Duck rap, so that it was the same way. And so it's like, was that a thing back then? Like shows were putting out this rap version of a song for them? Like what was that?
I vaguely remember things like that. I think they also probably used those during like either the credits or commercial breaks.
Mm.
And because like Disney used to do a lot of times where they'd show like little, like they do the music videos during commercial breaks, even into the 2000s and 2000 teens. And so I think that probably was just something else fun to throw into the loop for the Disney afternoons. But man, watching this as a freaking adult, that was wow. Yeah.
Because I'm sure as a kid you wanted to learn the dance and you wanted to learn the song, so you probably like replayed it a bunch of times and your parents were probably like, oh my god, turn that shit off.
Absolutely. It was probably like, get me the regular theme song, please.
Oh gosh, that's crazy.
Those were.
Out of all of these shows, what would you say was your favorite?
Whew, that's a tough one, but I'd probably have to say DuckTales.
Really?
Yeah, that's just the one that I remember that I really do remember probably the most.
Okay.
And because I can still remember alphabetizing our VHSs, and DuckTales was one of them. We had the movie. And so I think that was just one that, like I said, we always had it around. And so the show also resonated with me too.
So here's another question. Huey, Dewey, or Louie?
I can never tell them apart. I'll be honest. I'll be honest, I get so confused. I'm horrible with the names on those. Because it almost is one of those things where you feel like they're like triplets that are playing tricks on you every time. Like you almost feel like each episode they change up who's who. Because it's not necessarily how, I know that like one's got the green, one's got the blue, one's got the red.
Yeah.
But I still feel like they switched it up a little bit on that. Like one episode they'll call one of the characters this, and then the next episode that same character is a different name. And
what's happening?
I'm like, as a child, I'm confused. As an adult, I just lump them all together.
Still confused.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Just clump them all together. That's hilarious. So another question off of that.
Okay.
Donald or Daffy Duck?
Well, you can't understand either of them very well. That's a good question. Probably Donald, honestly.
Okay, yeah, me too.
Yeah. It may also just be because, too, every time I think about Donald anymore, I think of the Disneyland Paris had a really, really adorable commercial where they had like a little duck find an old cartoon book.
Oh, yes.
And Donald's his hero and everything. And he tries, when they're migrating, he tries to take the book and he drops it. And so they go to their new home for the summer or whatever, and he's walking around real sad, and then he walks into Donald and he just like gets all excited and everything, and it just even warms my heart just thinking of that commercial.
Aww.
And so yeah, I think Donald's probably would be between those two. Yeah, definitely Donald.
Yeah. Do you ever wonder why they didn't include more of Donald into DuckTales?
So I wonder, I did wonder that, but I wonder if it had something to do maybe with kind of a copyright issue for Donald. Why then?
No.
Why?
I'm gonna tell you. So two reasons. One is that they were afraid of overexposing his character. They didn't want a show to give him too much exposure because he was kind of already defined, I guess, as Donald Duck in his own world.
Yeah.
But also, too, because he's basically a character you can barely understand. So watching a whole show of him quacking around like incomprehensible, you would be having a hard time following it. I mean, I could probably understand him with my captions that I watched today, but back then you didn't really always have that option. So
yeah, but I mean, like, that was kind of part of the fun of Donald, though, is you can understand him when he's in a good mood, but once he gets angry, you just can't understand a damn thing he says. That's interesting.
Apparently in the new season, in the new version of DuckTales, though, he's the main character in it, and now he has learned how to talk normal.
Yeah, we're going to cross that one off my list of potential watches. Because, no, that doesn't work for me. That does not work for me at all.
You heard it here first, folks. April says no.
No. Not happening. No.
I love it.
No. So which of these would you say is your favorite that we've discussed today?
So definitely Goof Troop. Just like saying before, I just remember that one the most, and I, for some reason, just really love Goofy. But I think it's just because I loved Mickey and Minnie so much growing up, and Goofy was right there along with them, and his character just sort of stood out the most to me. So watching that show, I think I always wanted to make sure I was watching it. You know, if there was any shows on otherwise, it was like, no, it's got to be Goof Troop.
I hear you.
Yeah, I mean, I loved all these shows, though. I think they all were were really well done, and I think that they kind of gave you a little bit of all different sort of content. So if you didn't really care for one as a kid, you would enjoy another one because it sort of kind of was a little different. So you could watch all of them and just sort of pick and choose as they were on. So I did like that, and I thought that they just were really well animated, and the voice actors were really good. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed watching them all, and I think they all were very well done for Disney. I think they did another good thing for TV programming for sure.
Absolutely. I definitely give them kudos where they deserve it. And this was one of those. All of these had something for everybody. Like if there was, like we discussed, I didn't really care for Darkwing, but the others were ones that I would watch and did watch. So everybody had kind of their niche that they could keep up with for this. And hey, I mean, again, kudos where it's deserved. Disney does know their shit most of the time.
Yeah, for sure. Do you know if you watched any of the shows in the later years? Are we going to do a part 2 of this?
I know in the later years, I'd have to see which shows they were specifically, but I know
Aladdin and The Lion King were one of them, or two of them.
Okay.
Those are 2 shows that they had. Those are only 2 I can recall.
I know I watched Aladdin. I vaguely remember The Lion King, but because I remember that The Lion King was different than the movie and everything, so I had some issues with that because I love The Lion King so much. Yeah, I think we could definitely do like a part 2 on this and kind of go through and just find what was.
What else they have? Oh, they had Gargoyles.
Yes, that
Bonkers.
Gargoyles was the one that
Quack Pack.
I have never heard of Quack Pack.
And Mighty Ducks. Yeah, so they did have some.
We'll do like a part 2. It probably won't be as long.
Yeah, it'll be later.
Yeah.
Since they were like the back half of the 90s.
Yeah, because I definitely watched the Gargoyles, that's for sure. Hell, for the hell of it, last year, before we've ever even discussed 90s noise, was starting to rewatch Gargoyles.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's hilarious. That's kind of what we have for this episode of 90s Noise. Thanks for tuning in this week, and be sure to leave us your reviews. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, and if you leave a review, we'll be sure to shout you out on our later episodes. We'd love to hear kind of your feedback and what you're liking. If you have any sort of recommendations for us as far as topics that you would like for us to touch on, we'd love to hear them. That's all we got, and we'll see you next week, everyone. Peace!
Peace out.